Now, welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for K-2SO. We'll then compare those results to all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you can already nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next by responding to my pinned comment below with a character name, or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and on to the results for K-2SO, where we'll see that 31% of voters gave him an A, 50% or half of voters thought he belonged in the B tier, 15% went with a C, which left 2% to give him a D, and a final 2% to give him an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, that means K-2SO ends up with an average score of 4.06, which puts him into 23rd place overall, and 0.02 of a point ahead of none other than C-3PO, arguably one of the two most iconic and well-known droids in the entire Star Wars franchise. And to begin to understand why he edges him out, let's get to your comments. But not before once again just taking a moment to say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these videos or any of my videos. Also a big thank you to everybody who supports this channel and what I try to do here over on Patreon. You all are the best. And so let's now kick this off, as we always do, with the top rated comment from the poll, which this time came to us from Belangers, who said, "He is the most underrated comedic character in Star Wars. I love his line, 'There is a problem with the horizon. There is no horizon.'" And, well, maybe the results of this poll say he's not so underrated after all. He did finish pretty high. I mean, he finished ahead of C-3PO, and love or hate 3PO, and I know a lot of people really don't like 3PO. But he is, again, he is one of the most iconic characters, not just droid characters, but one of the most iconic characters in all of Star Wars. And to see him finish ahead says to me that a lot of people really like this character. And a lot of the times on these polls, I have a pretty good idea, I think, about how they're going to shape out. I have a rough guess that turns out to be pretty accurate on where they're going to finish. This time I really didn't know. I was kind of surprised to see K-2SO get 31% A's. Not that he didn't deserve it, but that's a high percentage of A's. And then half of the people again went with B, so I don't know. He's not really all that underrated. He is very much an appreciated character here. And then we have what B Marshy 2303 said in their comment, which is, without a doubt, the funniest character in Star Wars. And when you really think about it, he just might be, though kind of by default. I mean, Star Wars is not really known for its, overtly funny or comedic characters. Yes, it does have plenty of funny characters. It does have plenty of lighthearted and, humorous moments. But it's not really necessarily known for that. And I think the only character that, off the top of my head, that might give K-2SO a run for his money as quote-unquote funniest character in Star Wars would be maybe Hondo. I mean, Hondo is very similar, has a lot of one-liners, but, I mean, if you're comparing the characters, and Hondo does finish higher on the list too, Hondo has a lot more to him than just kind of K-2SO. He has a lot more time to have a lot more to him. He's obviously been in Clone Wars several episodes, and then showed up again in Rebels, and who knows when and where we might see him again. But either way, if it came right down to it, K-2SO just might be the funniest character in all of Star Wars. And speaking of how much screen time K-2SO has had or hasn't had, we then have this comment from Nathan Emmerich, who said, "Such a funny character, can't wait to see him in the Andor series," and then has this edit that says, "Wait, is he not going to be in Andor?" We also then have this comment from Golisopod Gaming, who said, "He is probably my favorite droid. He is funny, sassy, yet lovable. You can tell the bond between him and Andor, that they care about each other, even if they don't show it too often, plus his death was the saddest part of Rogue One for me. I hope we get to see more of him in the Andor show, and they are lying when they say he isn't going to be in it." And, well, I also hope that they're lying about K-2SO not being in the first season of Andor, even though that was said by Alan Tudyk, the guy who voices the character. It was said by him. And I know a lot of times they have NDAs and they're not allowed to say when they're going to be in certain series, but in this case, I mean, it almost seems like a given that K-2SO would be in this series, so him saying he's not in there kind of, I don't know, I believe it, unfortunately, because, he is a character that is going to help sell this series, Andor, for better or worse, has not been very hyped, it's not been very talked about, That's because, well, Andor is probably not the most popular character from Rogue One, and K-2SO is. So I don't know why you would lie about him not being in there or say that he's not in there and then end up putting him in there. I would, if I was in charge of the marketing for, Andor, I would certainly put K-2SO front and center with Cassian. In fact, the very first episode would be about how K2 and Cassian meet, and yes, I know this was covered in a one-shot comic book, but, they could either try to adapt that comic book for the show, or they could just do what they've done with a lot of comics and books. They can just kind of pretend it never happened and do their own meeting between the two characters, and that's how you kick off the series. That seems like the logical thing to do with this one, but if Alan Tudyk is telling the truth, and again, I don't see any reason for him to lie about this, or that they would have an NDA against him saying he's in the series, because he did say there's a potential to be in future seasons. That's what I would have done. I would have made sure to get these two characters together and to really sell this show. But anyway, let's now move on to this comment from Ian Gervasi, who said, "He is such a good character and is so funny. I think that without him, Rogue One would be so bland in terms of characters. For me, he is an easy A." Then there's this one from Hobbs1701A, who said, "K-2SO has more character in a one-off movie than anyone from the sequel trilogies. Alan Tudyk knocks it out of the park, as always." Then this one from Cuckoo for We, who said, "The relationship that Cassian and Jyn have with K2 is great. Cassian and K2 always seemed like a better version of BB-8 and Poe in The Force Awakens, but the way Jyn and K2 have to warm up to each other over the course of the story is really a nice character dynamic. I still tear up a bit when he says goodbye. Alan Tudyk does an excellent job in his delivery of every line." Then we also have this one from Matthew Chai, who said, "He's a very fun, endearing, and definitely the most memorable character in the Rogue One team. He is, in my opinion, one of the best droid companion trope characters in Star Wars, being up there with BD-1 for me. What makes him stand out from his other counterparts is that he is actually built to fight and kill, and his sarcastic and cynical personality is a very unique compared to that of 3PO, R2, and BB-8, etc. I also commend Disney for making me feel emotional for the death of a droid. Even if his body wasn't destroyed by the Death Star, the Empire would have never salvaged and rebuilt him since he's a corrupt robot, so he is permanently dead. Overall, one of the best droid characters, but like the rest of them, he's still one-dimensional, so he gets a B for me." Also, we have this comment from Oh So Edgy, who simply said, "Should be hospitalized for carrying the whole main cast of the movie, haha." And I do for the most part, and as someone who thinks Rogue One is the best of the Disney Star Wars movies, I do think for the most part that the characters in Rogue One are not the best or most well-developed that we've ever seen in Star Wars, and that K-2SO is probably the best character overall, which you can either say is kind of sad that the droid character was the standout, or you could say it's impressive that the droid character was the standout. Either way, I thought his death, though I thought all the deaths in Rogue One were actually pretty emotional for the most part, they were all pretty good, but his death was probably the saddest and probably the biggest of the tearjerkers, if you will. Which again, you can either say is kind of sad that we were crying for the droid while a bunch of humans died, or you could say it's impressive that they made us care so much about a droid. Alright, and moving on now, we have this comment from Beanbag37, who said, "A. I typically wouldn't give an A to a comic relief character that isn't a big focus in the story, but he's just such a fun presence that adds so much to Rogue One, that in my opinion he's one of the few comic reliefs that deserves an A. His sacrifice even brought a tear to my eye." Also then this comment from Captain Pep, who said, "He's how you do a comic relief right, to be honest. I give him an A because there wasn't a single line he delivered that I'd consider bad. He had the perfect amount of screen time and it never felt like they overused him." And then there's this one from Peter Marshall, who said, "Had some great one-liner backhand remarks. Unlike the sequels, his humor didn't feel forced or out of place. Plus he was absolutely badass. He is up there on my list of Star Wars droids, definitely a B+ character." And it is impressive that even though pretty much every line he says, except for towards the bitter end when he's sacrificing himself, that pretty much every line he says is humorous, but it's not intentionally humorous on his part, that it just comes off as humorous. They did an amazing job inserting this overtly funny character that isn't intended to be, he's not intending to be funny, he's just being himself. A very impressive character, and again, it doesn't feel forced like some of the humor did in the sequel trilogy. I can't help but go back to the Your Mama joke done by Poe at the start of the movie. Some people like it. For me, that just felt completely out of place for Star Wars. But anyway, let's now get to just a few final comments before wrapping this up. Starting with this one from Hannah W, who said, I have been waiting for you to do K. I adore K-2SO. He is so endearing. He has no filter but says exactly what is on his mind, which leads him to having some of the funniest and at other times most heartfelt and meaningful lines in the movie, especially with Jin. Also, as someone whose best friends are both amazing people with Asperger's syndrome, I really appreciated the creation of a character that comes across strongly as a person with high-functioning autism. His blunt, no-filter interactions and preference for close relationships reminded me fondly of them and made me like him even more. My Asperger's friends have told me they also see the similarity. Then there's this one from KS who said, love his dry, sarcastic humor, and he had actual character development, going from distrusting Jin to sacrificing himself to help her and Cassian accomplish their mission. I felt a genuine twinge of sadness when he died. He was more than just a side character. A for me. Also, we have this comment from Casual Redguard who said, a fun character overall. He's got a lot of great lines and is the most memorable character in Rogue One for me. It's a shame we won't see him in Andor. B for me. Then there's this comment from Mac Welch who said, not only is this droid funny, but also physically imposing. And then this one from Sash Quack who said, probably the best character to come from the Disney Star Wars movies. Then we also had this one from Star Wars News and Memes who said, I usually give comedy or side characters either a B or C, but K2 is one of the few exceptions and gets an A. He had the perfect balance of comedy, usefulness, and emotional weight. I remember him for his comedic role. He played an important part in the movie, and I did feel something when he died. Usually, such characters don't check all three boxes. And finally here we have this comment from Centaur255 who said, absolutely A-level character, which is a bit surprising considering how little screen time he gets. He's got it all. Good lines, good chemistry with the rest of the group, gripping scenes, brilliant actions, and an absolute tearjerker of an ending. And from a supporting character, what more could you want? An easy A for me. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of K-2SO, or tell me what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. You can also feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we do next. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.